Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, depending on which part of the world you're attending this year's DDL conference. On behalf of Kindeva Drug Delivery family, I wish you and your loved ones a safe passage through these unsettling times. My name is Barzin Gavtash, and in this presentation, I would like to share our recent findings in predicting the internal flow structure inside the PMDI expansion chamber using CFD technique. PMDI will soon be celebrating its 65th birthday. Since its conception, the device has been the mainstay of drug delivery to the lungs. However, details of the aerosol formation process have only become clearer during the last 5 years through experiments by Myatt, Hargrave, and colleagues in the Loughborough University group since 2015, and Mason Smith, Duke, and Honoré at Monash in 2017. What has become clear is that the aerosol quality and stability depends on the details of the flow inside the expansion chamber. In this presentation, I would like to show the results of a CFD study carried out as a collaborative research between Kindeva, Maya HDT, and Loughborough University. The purpose of the work was to see if it was possible to predict the phase distribution of an expanding propellant inside the PMDI expansion chamber. This problem needs to be considered as a two-phase flow and must have an account of the heat and mass transfer between the two phases. The purpose of our CFD model is to understand the precursors of liquid atomization in a PMDI. The domain of our model is the expansion chamber of a typical PMDI, which is the space formed by the valve stem and the actuator sump. We also consider the actuator orifice and the exit cone of the PMDI. We discretize the computational domain by approximately 500,000 polyhedral elements with the base size of 50 microns with various local refinement as shown on this slide. The walls are taken to be smooth since PMDI components have a very high finish, and we assume that the actuation event is so quick that heat transfer between the expanding propellant and the expansion chamber walls can be neglected. Initially, the expansion chamber is assumed to be filled with air at atmospheric conditions. HFA-134A enters into this space through the valve orifice at an instantaneously varying mass flow rate and liquid volume fraction. These temporal quantities are calculated by a separate model that we have extensively used previously for this purpose. The flow leaves the computational domain through the exit cone of the actuator nozzle, where the pressure is taken to be 1 bar. As I've stated before, we are particularly interested in the relative amounts of vapor and liquid in the actuator sump and their spatial distribution. The flow involves vapor and liquid phases, so it is necessary to use multi-phase flow capability. We have chosen a star CCM Plus as the CFD platform and utilize the volume of fluid capability because this algorithm has the important capability to represent flash evaporation, which is responsible for the development of the vapor phase. This is taken care of by a cavitation model based on a well-known Rayleigh-Implicit equation of bubble growth along with an assumed bubble nuclei population. Nuclei population order of magnitude is representative of observation by Myatt and colleagues. The variation of the number of active nuclei with superheat follows a relationship of Senda that is widely used in the modeling of automotive fuel sprays. In order to model the distribution of the phase accurately, it is important to make sure that the force of gravity is applied within the model. As part of the results, first we show an animation of the overview of CFD model predictions. We are going to look at the distribution of liquid volume fraction. The color scale runs from red, which represents 100% propellant liquid, to blue, which corresponds to 100% vapor. Intermediate colors represent mixed liquid vapor region with color scale indicating whether the content is predominantly vapor or liquid. Straight after coming in from the metering chamber, a propellant jet is predicted to impact on the valve stem wall opposite the valve orifice. Liquid phase predominantly sticks to the wall and much of the liquid flows downwards under gravity, but some of the liquid has sufficient energy to flow upwards first towards the top of the valve stem, and some of it reaches the wall containing the valve orifice. Vapor mainly flows through the central region of the expansion chamber, making a vapor-rich core. The force of gravity causes liquid to drain down the walls of the expansion chamber and to make its way to the actuator sump, which is enriched in liquid. As the time progresses, the mixture becomes vapor dominant with liquid volume fraction drops below 20%. In the current simulation, we are not interested in the spray orifice region at the moment, but the simulation correctly predicts that the two-phase mixture exits the spray orifice, leading to an expanding jet. We show a more detailed view of the valve stem at its Smith height. To validate the trends of the model, we show a number of images that were grabbed from the work by Mason Smith, Duke, and Honoré. We note that the geometry of the actuator was not the same as in this model. Nevertheless, these results demonstrate that the trends of the models are credible. The CFD model predicts that the flow is characterized by liquid wall films and a vaporous core flow. This is also observed in the phase contrast images shown on the right-hand side of this slide. As the actuation time proceeds, the existence of wall film and vapor core becomes more evident both in CFD predictions and the phase contrast images. Towards the end of the actuation, the CFD model predicts that the wall film disappears and the mixture becomes predominantly vapor-rich and homogeneous. Next, we show a more detailed view of the actuator sump to show the distribution of liquid and vapor in this region. Again, we see that the model shows how the liquid drains down the walls of the expansion chamber and collects in the actuator sump. Such phase distribution has also been observed in the phase contrast images. As the actuation time proceeds, the fluid collected at the bottom of the sump, along with other liquid segments floating in this region, form stretching precursor ligaments and make their way into the spray orifice, forming a layer attached to the spray orifice wall. This is in line with experimental observations, suggesting that the relative amounts of liquid and vapor will strongly affect the primary atomization. As we move towards the end of the actuation event, the two-phase mixture in the sump becomes more vapor-rich and forms a homogeneous mixture. Experimental observations also suggest that the flow is predominantly vapor, with some liquid forming small interfaces. These small interfaces are not captured by the current CFD model due to the deficiencies of the VOF approach and the resolution of a spatial discretization. These should be addressed in the next iteration of such modeling activities. To reiterate, the intention of the project was to see if it was possible to capture the spatial distributions of liquid and vapor in the expansion chamber of a PMDI. The work has shown that there is a reasonable agreement between the predicted and observed trends. A liquid-rich zone is predicted to form in the actuator sump, and this corresponds with experimental observations. This type of modeling is in its infancy, but the agreement of the predicted trends with experiments suggests that CFD modeling can be useful in this area. Of course, if we can understand the flow in the region before it enters the spray-forming orifice, we may be able to get better control of aerosol droplet size and velocity. So with further refinement and validation, we see that this type of modeling may have potential for optimization of PMDI device geometry and formulation on the basis of fundamental understanding of expanding propellant physics. The intention of this collaborative effort has been to show what is possible with commercial CFD. There is more work to be done, such as understanding and refining the definition of nucleation process as the primary source of vapor generation, and to also include the effect of excipients and alternative low global warming potential propellants. In the end, I would like to thank to my co-authors at Maya HDT and Loughborough University. Another special thanks to our partner Maya HDT for providing us with their modeling expertise and computational resources, and we greatly appreciate the support of Dr. Daniel Duke and Professor Damon Honoré from Monash University for sharing the phase contrast images with us. And finally, thank you very much to all of you for choosing to tune into this presentation. Again, on behalf of Kindevo Drug Delivery family, I wish you to stay safe, healthy, and happy during these difficult times.